And yes, I think we should start the meeting. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are. Welcome to a new season of monthly meetings, the joint online meeting hosted by the Federation of Inter-Asia Philately. And we have members from all over the world, of course. And tonight, I would like to talk about, or other members will probably have things to share about our late Her Majesty the Queen. It is a tragic event, of course, last week, and the whole world was shocked by her passing. And I think it's really apt that we should actually show some of her the philatelic material issued during her time as the Queen. So I would like to start first, if you don't mind, just basically it's a summary of the philatelic material issued by Hong Kong during her reign. So we should start. Let me see first. Okay. Well, I mean, the title is Queen Elizabeth II and the Hong Kong Philately, a short summary. So on the 9th of February 1952, Princess Elizabeth was proclaimed as Her Most Gracious Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, following the death of her father, His late Majesty King George VI, on 6th of February. The coronation was held on 2nd of June 1953 at Westminster Abbey. You can see you probably have seen these pictures in many media, like Facebook or internet, something. The young queen admiring the Royal Philatelic collection at, I would say this is Buckingham Palace. So where the collection is being held. So I don't know exactly how old she was then, but looking at her, her beauty, I would say she would be in her 20s. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. So the Commonwealth Omnibus issue was planned for a coronation on the 2nd of June, and the stamp was designed and engraved by Bradbury Wilkinson. So it's 59 colonies were involved, having the same design. There are other colonies do not share the same design, but the design is actually composed of an approved portrait of Her Majesty the Queen in an oval frame, incorporating the date of the coronation and the name of issuing territory and the value. The stamp was recessed printed by Delarue in sheets of 120, but this is just for Hong Kong. I know that there are other colonies which don't have this format. There are several different formats of this stamp. If you actually collect the coronation omnibus. So for the Hong Kong, it's actually divided into two panes, the pane A and pane B, 120, but they were actually divided. So you can see here on the left, you can see the vignette, the head plate of the design is very well engraved, and I can tell you there are actually more than one die. It is quite difficult actually to tell the difference between the different dies, but there are minor differences, which you can tell. And this is, of course, a finished product. I've actually not seen the so-called duty plate from Hong Kong. Maybe it's in people's collection, but so this is actually the head plate. Right. All right. So on the first day of issue, 1,045,000 stamps were sold in the first 3 hours of business. Wow, this is just fantastic. So when people were queuing up at the post offices to buy the stamps, and compare with the average full day sale of the 10-cent the normal 10-cent definitive stamps, which amount to some 84,000 a day. So this is just a huge amount of stamps being sold. The post office actually did not issue an official first day cover, but there were many private printed pictorial covers available. And I haven't actually done a census of how many of the different types available, but I'm sure that just a casual browse on eBay or other maybe some sales or in the dealer stock, you probably find quite a few. And the total sales of the stamp during the 6 months life was 15,240,000, the highest of all the 59 participating crown colonies. So there are lots of them around. I actually won't go into the detail of the coronation stamp, all the different plates, etc. But maybe I'd like to leave that until a later time. But anyway, the stamp actually was withdrawn from sale on 31st of December 1953 and was invalidated on 1st of January 1964. I have here a picture of obviously this is a philatelic cover. It begins its life as a first day cover with the stamp cancelled by machine on the 2nd of June 1953. So this is actually a first day cover, but another person probably I think he was a stamp dealer, and he sent it on the put another stamp on and mailed it on the day when it was invalidated. So the stamp there had a red border around it, so showing that it's not a valid postage stamp, and with the date here stamped here, 1st of January 1964. Fortunately or unfortunately, the cover did not have received any postage due. Anyway, okay. So the first stamp, the first definitive stamp, shall I say, of the Her Majesty the Queen was the 1954 definitive, which actually follows the Gilbert design of her father, King George VI. Is a Wilding portrait of the Queen, and it was printed by Delrue in typography, right? And at the time of issue, which was 5th January, 65 cents and $1.30 was not issued until they were issued until later. So interestingly, I'm sure that you have seen the magnificent collection of this issue of Nick. I mean, if Nick wishes to talk about that issue on a later date, or maybe some other time at the end of the meeting, he's most welcome to. But I'm not an expert of this issue, and I won't want to go into the errors or the plating detail or different plate numbers, etc. But anyway, I want to actually show. I found this cover. I think it was sold on eBay, and with all the stamps except I think one value. I think it's the 15 cents something. And the stamps actually they were cancelled 5th of January in 1955. So I don't know whether it is a coincidence or actually maybe the British Fleet Mail Office actually got the year wrong. I'm not sure, but it actually looks like quite philatelic to me, and I'm not surprised that originally it would have been a first day cover, but they got the year slot wrong. But anyway, it's an interesting piece. Okay, and the second issue, of course, is the famous Angoli issue of 1962. Is the first multicolored stamp printed by Harrison in photogravure. Different as there's several color plates, and of course our Professor Shaw is the expert on this issue, and I really don't want to go into much detail on the errors of different paper types, gum, etc. of this issue. But aside from the stamps, there are two coils, the 10-cent and 50-cent coil stamps. They call it coil reel. I don't know why they call it reel. Anyway, so and you can see actually there are two types of first aid cover. These are official first aid covers by the post office. There's a small one, basically for the low values, and there's a large one for all the stamps. And you can see the two examples here. And there are actually very few of this issue actually without any of the first aid covers without address, because at that time they have to be sent through the mail. So actually you can see with the address either typed or handwritten on the cover, and there may be some without address, but must be quite few. Anyway, some people. Go back to that. This is in 1968. Designer Whitely designed two stamps. There was a 65 cents and $1 value. The 65 cents is the Bohemia, of course, and the $1 is the Covart. And these two stamps, I think, replaced the 65 cents and $1. And I won't go into the reason and the varieties of these two stamps. I'm sure Professor Shaw would fill me in. So this is actually the last day of. I wouldn't say it's the last day cover, because I mean I'm sure that the stamps could be used well into the 70s, even with the issuance of the matron definitive. So I mean it really should be termed the last day of sale of the antigone. But I believe I found this picture on Facebook, and I believe these are most of these stamps are the glazed paper printing, including the very rare $10 value here with a very distinctive deep shade of green. So this is the last day. So on the next day. Actually, it's on the same day. I don't know why it's on the same day. And the matron issue. Now, instead of showing the regular stamps, I would like to bring your attention to these Harrison's. I don't know what you call them, the proofs or essays or whatever. They must be essays, because if you look at them, they all bear the $1 value, which of course the right hand one, it looks like a $2, the color of the $2, and the left hand one looks like the color of the $5. But this must be a pre-production essays of the stamp, and there are a lot of these material appeared recently. Well, in earlier of this year in Hong Kong sale. And there are some more, and I think some of the essays of the matrix issues with obviously unadopted designs, and obviously the designs that were issued, but not the stamp. Actually, these all with a different denomination. And then some more. So. Okay, so yeah, issued on the 12th of June, and there are also three coil stamps, the 10 cents, 50 cents, and the $1, and they were on the old type of machines, which you put a coin in, and then you can pull one stamp out. It's a mechanical device which you can actually still see the machine displayed in the post office postal gallery at the GPO. So there were three other stamps of 60 cents, 70 cents, and 80 cents were issued later on the 4th of May, 1977, and the 90 cents issued on the 1st of October, 1981. So these are the original stamps. Very intriguing stamps, because the first issue you have we have a large crown watermark. And then they would change the watermark to spiral CA watermark, and then later when the paper got thicker and with a matte surface and extremely difficult to see the watermark. I think we discussed it about how to see the watermark of the later printings of this issue in one of the Zoom meeting before. So it's very interesting. A lot of studies can be done with these issues. There are plenty of errors, etc. So someone's still coming in. Plenty of errors of these issues like missing embossing, inverted watermark. Obviously, there are gum differences. That they started off with the yellow PVA gum, yellowish PVA gum, and then later on switched to a greenish PVAD gum of the later printing. And then it goes from a semi-glazed paper, and then later on it became a matte, printed on matte paper. So this is a thoroughly interesting issue. Okay, so right, so we go on to the fourth issue, which is the 1982. We coined it the Lion and Dragon because it's got a British lion and a Chinese dragon on the side of the Queen's vignette in the middle. And interestingly, the catalog actually doesn't actually say that it actually has a fluorescent security mark in the middle with the Chinese letter Hong Kong, two Chinese characters Hong Kong in the middle, which you can actually see with a UV light. The designer is Arthur Hacker, and it's printed by Harrison there. And there are two coil stamps, 10 cents and $1, but no 50 cents. I wonder why. And then of course later on when there's change in postal rates, that a $1 3 emerald green colored beautiful stamp issued on the 2nd of September 1985. So you can see the first day cover. This is a first day cover. It's a short set with minus the high values. And then you've got new innovation by the post office. I mean, obviously, this is a big business, to have a last day of issue cover. I mean, I think this is the first time. This is an official last day issue cover of the Lion and Dragon issue. And the last day of sale was on 11th July. And then you can see this one with all the stamps there. And canceled some shape hope. Right. Okay. The high values, of course, here the bigger size has embossing of the Queen's vignette. Right, and then we move on to the so-called harbor view. The harbor view, and you can see the harbor view. Nice stamps, actually designed by Robert Hookham, right? And it's actually printed in lithography in Australia by Lee Marden. Now, it's got two. It has two coil stamps, the 10 cent and 50 cents in different designs. It's not just a smaller version of the definitive stamp design. They are much smaller to fit into the machine, the coil machine. And then now this, I'm showing this cover here is quite interesting. At this time, around the 1980s, the Philatelic Bureau has decided to produce its own first day cover. Cancelled, by the junk postmark, junk Torio postmark, and it has a special label that they produce here. And these are actually these stamps, these covers. You can actually buy or order from the Philatelic Bureau, and there was a craze about these covers, and they were sold at a higher price than the covers that you made yourself, even with exactly the same design and the postmarks, because of this label. I don't know what happened to their price now, but there used to be a collecting craze for these covers. So there were two more values, the $1.40 and $1.80 were issued on 1st September 1988, but that's usually due to the change in postal rates. And interestingly, with this issue, the first issue, the first printing on the 13th of July, printing that was released has a heavy shading of the jaw, lower jaw and chin, and we called it like a bearded chin. And then somebody actually complained to the post office that the Queen actually looked ugly and looks like a man. So they decided to retouch the plate, and then the Queen actually became cleanly shaven by 1988. And then you can see that for the new value, the $1.40 and $1.80, the Queen has shaved. So he got shaven chin, and there are other reprints in 1989, 1990, and 1991 with the year actually appearing at just below the two Chinese character Hong Kong. Now this issue is rather notorious because of lots of errors. I'm still not too sure the status of the errors. These errors, so-called double printing errors of Hong Kong and the skyline. So you can find virtually the double printing on every single value and every single printing. So I mean, it is rather interesting that that you get so many of these double printing errors. One wonders whether they are really genuine or basically somebody's been trying to be clandestine in the printers or something, and to produce something like that for the collectors. Anyhow, so I'd say the Harbour View actually has two different as a coil stamps, and they look different from before. And one has a flag, the Hong Kong colonial flag, and then a map of Hong Kong. And they were reprinted three times actually. The original issue, the 1989 issue, and it has the year appearing here in the left bottom left corner. The 1990, the 10 cents, and the most difficult one is 1991, 10 cents and 50 cents. Actually, they're actually very hard to come by. But in fact, because they were issued for such a short time, and finding these coil stamps on postally used envelopes are not easy. So and it's well worth keeping. Anyway, so four new values were produced in 1992, but actually they were printed by Enschede of Holland in Philately instead of Leeuwarden. And they look actually, if you compare if you have actually stamped itself, if you compare the design and use a powerful magnifying glass, you can actually see the difference in the printing method of the stamps. Obviously, the reason why they have the new definitive the new values is because of the change in postal rates again. Anyway, so you've got the last day of issue cover here again, with the 80 cents, 90 cents, $1.80 and $2.40 coils, as well as the other. This is actually the officially printed cover, officially issued post office cover. Right, and then of course you've got the calligraphy with the Chinese calligraphy, the two characters Hong Kong issue in 1992, which replaced the previous one, and it is designed by Ian Leung, a local guy, and printed by the Dutch firm and in Philately. And then you can see this is the official first day cover with all the stamps. Now, this is very interesting issue because later on, because of mechanization, all the stamps actually, or the whole sets of stamps actually appear with phosphor lines. So, and then there are other things, and then the coils are very interesting to collect. You can see that these are the original coils produced, and you see there's so many values is because at that time there was the old coil machine had been abandoned, and then a new automated vending machine. Just put in your money, and then out comes the stamps from the cover from the machine slots, different slots, and that's why there's several values. You can actually buy all the different values from the machine. So this is the introduction of the new stamp vending machine you can find in all the post offices. And then of course later on there's the change in the postage rate, and then the different coils available. Okay, so finally, because of I'm sure you heard of the OCR reader, the sorter canceller in the GPO and the IMC. Just automated machine. You just chuck in loads of letters, they sort it into AML and local, and then stamp the letter. So they need some way of recognizing whether actually the stamp is for local mail or for overseas mails. So they do it by having two. It's just same as in the UK. They have the postal bars, which have been introduced many years ago already, with two bars and the one bar. And then you can find all these stamps with a code with the postal bars. But okay, very hard to see actually from the scan, but you can almost see it here. But you see the key features is the head plate, which is a grayish black head plate. Is from either cylinder 7 or cylinder 8, whereas previously they were from the lower cylinders. So I mean, if you have a stamp like this, for example, the 7-cylinder C7, 7-cylinder, and then you can't find any phosphor lines on it. Congratulations, you've got yourself a gem, a missing phosphor. I don't know whether there are. There may be. I don't know. I mean, as I don't collect it, there could be. They could exist. So, and then, of course, again, the last day cover with the. Now, interesting. Why am I showing this? Is because if you compare this last day cover at the Philatelic Bureau with the Philatelic Bureau cancellation, how do I know that? Because it's got PB here on top of the sale, the main sale of the junk. And if you look at it, it's so neat because by this time there's a machine cancel was already in use. So they actually the person actually didn't actually hand chop these things. He just put it on the machine and then press the button, and the machine did all the work. So you can see how neat. I bet you if you put a ruler there, all these would be in line because it's all done by the machine. Right, 163 commemorative stamp issued during, including souvenir sheets issued during the Queen Elizabeth era, Hong Kong. Interesting. I don't know whether if you collect these stamps, I don't know whether actually you have noticed that most of the stamps actually bear the Queen Elizabeth, the crown, the royal, so-called the royal cipher, which is the crown and the E2R. Maybe only about 20 to 30 of such stamps actually has the Queen's face. Maybe the actual face of the Queen, or the actual it's like a silhouette of the Queen on the stamps. And for you know, it's very interesting. For example, there's one issue about the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen has just Hong Kong and with the Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen together. It's a photograph, and there's no and there's no actually as a royal cipher on the stamp. So I mean, because of the Queen's face, and that it's already enough said that you know this is a issue, royal issue. So the first Queen Elizabeth commemorative stamp I've said before is the coronation issue. You can show here, and then the last commemorative stamp is actually the Hong Kong Classic Series number 10, issued on 30th June 1997. I remember that in the morning, everybody queued up at the post office, all the post offices just to buy the sheetlet, and it was only valid for 1 day. I mean, it must have been a record. That the sheet actually, the stamp actually valid for 1 day, but it is actually quite a meaningful sheetlet. You can see they reproduced. This is the official cancellation with the first postmark of this, or maybe the civilian post office postmark of Hong Kong, the post office Hong Kong with the 2 rows. And the design, and then with the different the stamps, different ring, the Queen Victoria, King Edward, King George VI, King George V, King George VI, and the Bohemian issues, and the old post offices of Hong Kong. And it's nice sheetlet, but shame is only lasted for less than 1 day, I would say. Anyway, but still there are lots of them around, and I think most of us would have a whole block of them in our safe, waiting for its value, waiting for its value to go back to $10. It's actually you can buy them below face nowadays. Pretty. Anyway, there are no postal stationery envelopes, postal cards during the reign of the Queen, probably due to a decline in popularity and the rising production cost. But however, you do actually get registered postal station envelopes with a different indicium, with a 30 cents, 40 cents wilding design in the 1950s, 60s, and then it becomes a matron design and later in the $1, $2, $4. And lots of interesting scope for collecting, because the backside actually of envelope is very interesting with different with different compensation schedule, and some of them are pretty rare with the hand stamped correcting the old schedule. Different of course, different their sizes as well. Right, and not to say that I'm maybe slightly wrong, just to say that there are no postcards. But you see, later on in 1996, we have the Christmas cards, postage prepaid Christmas cards issued in 12th of November 1996. Actually, I was actually consulted on the issuance of these postcards because at that time there was. Well, I mean, there's still, a lot of people collecting maximum cards, Maximaphily, and but there is actually a rule in competition that the stamp cannot be exactly the same as the card or vice versa. So they decided, the post office decided actually to use different colored background. The airmail, they use the red one. And the local mail, they use a green one. The stamp actually itself is the actual design actually is exactly the same as the stamp, or printed stamp on reverse. But that's good enough. I mean, just to so that these cards could be used in competition, in the Maximaphily exhibition competition. So quite interesting cards. There are more picture postcards being issued. There you've got the first one is the University of Science and Technology, UST, postcards. Only one postcard for airmail, prepaid airmail, and 10th October 1991. It's a postcard. I don't know, you probably have seen it. If you go to catalog, it's quite beautifully produced postcard. And then you've got obviously the Hong Kong 94 International Stamp Exhibition, the hologram postcard, which is actually it's the first time that Hong Kong ever produced such postcards with the two stamps in hologram, printed in hologram, or design, print hologram. And then in Hong Kong 97, there's the second International Stamp Exhibition of Hong Kong, actually produced more hologram postcards. And then later on, they have the postal prepaid picture postcard series for airmail. I mean, these cards are for tourism. I think basically just to show, you know, what's so interesting about Hong Kong, why you should come here and do a tour and spend your money. And you're showing actually the Hong Kong mountains, the urban heritage, the Hong Kong birds and modern landmarks. Right, aerogram. Oh wow, this is no. I thought there were not that many aerograms, but you know, when I actually went into the catalog, I said, you know, you could actually form like an 8-frame collection of aerograms. Is there so many different aerograms issued? So actually, the first aerogram was a 40-cent Wilding portrait in blue, issued on the 8th of April 1954, and then it's actually changed to 50 cents when it went up. The postage rate went up to 50 cents, and the color changed to red. And then later on, of course, you have the Antigone aerograms on so many different, at least 4 types of Antigone aerograms. The long ones, and they folded differently, the one with the red and blue arrows, etc. And there are lots of arrows there, you know, missing indicium, you know, missing red arrow, missing red arrow. I'm sure you know it. Yeah. So the matron aerogram. Now this is quite interesting. Matron aerogram is when I was in the UK at the time, and my parents actually sent me these aerograms, and you know, every week. So I got hundreds of these aerograms telling me to behave myself. Anyway, you get the 2 different types. Actually, it's not recognized by the catalog. Actually, the early issues actually has a rather more crude design. I mean, the design is exactly the same, but it's far more crude and rough. And then later on, they refined it, the printing refined it, and then you can actually see the indicium much more clearly. So that actually is there's 2 different versions, but it's not recognized in the catalog. Right, and then in 1977, they changed the design again to the dragon motif. That you have the blue dragon and the white dragon, and then of course that you get the plane and the one the cloud background, and then the dragon was the motif actually turned to green later on, and then with a different with the Bohemia background, a different yeah, and then of course there's a special version of the 150th anniversary aerogram with the different, again with the map design and the skyline design of Hong Kong. Okay, I won't bother you a lot with these. And then of course later on they changed it to the, again with a different a more modern looking indicium. And then of course the $2 aerogram, the Queen and Bohemia, and the this is the Governor House, and the this is the Space Museum and the Cultural Center here. So Anyway, this is the end of my talk, and really collecting actually the Queen Elizabeth period is fascinating. And I actually have missed out a very important collecting area, which is booklets. I mean, there are plenty of booklets to be collected. And then I'm sure that that there is a class called modern philately in international competition, which you can actually enter some an exhibit of a more modern era, and then I think this is quite fascinating. I mean, for each definitive issue, I mean, it's so many things that you can actually collect and even to do some investigations and to dig up why they were printed, why you have the errors, etc. It's a fascinating area. Yes, I did collect QE2 before, but but anyway, they would just basically get too many issues that I just gave up some time ago. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to my talk, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And yes, and any questions? Yeah. Right.
Andrew, I'll make one comment. The Harborview issue. You mentioned that the ones with the map stamps, the 1991 issues, are very hard to find commercially used. So are some of the lower values of the Queen definitives of the 1991 imprint. I have been searching for the 60 cents for 21 years, and I got one last weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
And I still don't have the 50 cent.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. Because especially, I think I have been actually fascinated. I don't actually collect them, but when I actually dug up all the aerograms, they've been issued only for about 1 year, and then obviously they change the design every year. And then how many people actually write aerograms nowadays? Now I received a lot, in the 70s, when my parents wrote to me. Obviously, in those days, long distance calls are expensive, and just they keep sending me letters every couple of weeks. So, but who actually pick up an if you ask many, I think most people in the streets, what is the aerogram? How much you pay for an aerogram? I mean, most people won't answer you, won't be able to answer you. So and then even those in the 1990s, I mean, they would keep having a different aerogram every year. I mean, just try for. I mean, most of the used examples would be Philatelic. I mean, actually finding them used or even registered. I mean, you're really you should grab it basically. Right. Any comments? Okay, so right, fine. I would like to move on. Since actually I spent, I thought I was going to talk about 20 minutes, but I've actually spent something like over nearly an hour. I'm sorry about that. So I would like to ask Ingo, would you like to show us something before?
Yes, I prepared a tribute to our Queen, our late Queen also. And I'll show it to you. It's got a completely Canadian point of view, but Hong Kong and Canada shared the same monarch. In the case of Canada, though, it was different. We weren't a crown colony. The Queen was actually our head of state. So in Canada, she was the Queen of Canada, not the Queen of England.
Yeah.
This is a very simple tribute. It just shows images of her. There is a little bit of philately in here, but most of it is postcards. And just showing loving images of the Queen. And I opened it with her at the changing of the guard ceremony, where she is doing an official duty. She was a woman who dedicated her life to her duty and did it to the last days of her life. Even 2 days before she passed away, she received the new prime minister. And the amazing amount of work and tireless dedication to all the duties is just incredible, that somebody could work that hard and have that long a dedication to life. So I really appreciate her for that. This is the earliest image of the princess on a stamp. It was published by Newfoundland in 1932 when she was 6 years old. And at that time, she was a princess, but not a royal princess, because the heir to the throne was her uncle, Edward, who turned out to be Edward VIII. And it was only later on that she became a royal princess and heir to the throne. This was part of a definitive issue in Newfoundland in the 1930s. At that point, Newfoundland was not a part of Canada yet. It was a crown colony of England, and up till 1949, they issued their own stamps. It was only in 1949 that Newfoundland joined Canada to become our 10th province. So that's why you have stamps pre-1949 or pre-1950 with Newfoundland as a separate stamp issuing entity. This stamp from 1939, it's a definitive series that was issued when George VI acceded to the throne after the abdication of Edward VIII. And that's when Elizabeth became a royal princess and heir to the throne as the oldest child of her father, King George VI. So here's a local cover in Newfoundland showing her in 1938 as the royal princess. This is a Canadian cover featuring the stamp that Canada issued on the occasion of her wedding. It's a first day cover, and the stamp is a little bit unusual. That portrait of the Queen is not well known and is not one of the really standard ones that you see. And it's kind of unique. And of course, this first day cover commemorates the wedding of Prince Philip and Princess Elizabeth. And this is after she became queen and had the coronation, and they took this formal picture of the Queen and His Royal Highness Prince Philip at their residence in Buckingham Palace. In 1959, the Queen came to Canada to inaugurate the St. Lawrence Seaway, which was a major joint waterway construction project between Canada and the United States to open up navigation or to facilitate navigation on the St. Lawrence River. And she came to inaugurate that and came with her family. At that time, there was only 2 children, Anne and Charles, the future king. And this is a black and white photo taken during their visit here, doing a little bit of relaxing. They don't look that relaxed, but anyways, they're sitting down and posing for a picture. Of all the British Commonwealth countries that the Queen toured, and she did a lot of touring in her life, as everybody knows, Canada was the place she visited the most often and did 22 official visits to our country. I love the Wilding definitives, both of Hong Kong and certainly of the UK. And I don't collect them or specialize in them, but when they issued in 2003, the 50th anniversary of the Wildings in a souvenir sheet in the UK, I made sure to get a copy of this. It's just a lovely reproduction of those iconic stamps from the early time of her reign in the 1950s up till 1959, although you can find them used in the 60s too. And of course, these reprints have different values, and they're expressed in decimal currency of pence rather than the old pounds, shillings, and pence. And this is my favorite portrait of her, the Antigone portrait. This is the actual painting, and she just looks so regal and so true to the duty that she promised to do throughout her life. And it just is a wonderful reproduction of that image, and with a little bit of landscape in the background and a lot of sky behind her head. It's just, to me, a wonderful image of her. And the final one is her doing her famous wave on the balcony at Buckingham Palace, and I wish her to rest in peace. She's been a big part of my life, and I can't imagine what it's going to be like now in the Carolingian age, which is what we're probably going to be calling Charles III. But I will say, God save the King. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. Thank you, Ingo. Yeah, very, very touching to actually show you the photos. And, yeah. Okay.
We all knew that she was. We all knew that she was old and getting slowed down, especially after Philip died, and she also had a bout of COVID. But it was still a shock when the moment came that she actually died. It was amazing how affected a lot of us were. So yeah, we're definitely grieving.
Mm. All right. Anybody got questions, comments? If not, we should move on to Professor. The Professor Shaw is the Antigone expert.
Well, not really. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would share the screen. Let me share the screen first. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so as a tribute to the late Queen, I would like to show you this Hong Kong Antigone, some pre-stamp products I found on the internet, or I came across at different occasions. So as Andrew said, that you get these issues as the second issue of the definitive stamps, and it was issued in 1962. Okay, so you can see that there are some small size stamps, altogether 10, and then there are 5 large size with different color. The small one is having only one color. So this is in fact the first official first day cover for definitive stamps of Hong Kong. And so this one is a souvenir sheet issued in the Stamp Act in London, 1963. And coincidentally, it was the 10th anniversary of the coronations. Okay, so this souvenir sheet show how this color stamps was printed. It was printed in different colors. Okay, with a background color also. And the printing was used the photography method. I talked about that some time ago. So this is the film from the archive of the Harrison and Son Limited. So was used to prepare the photographia plate for printing the Antigone issues. So basically, just shine the light through this film to a metal cylinder, okay, and then do some etching. Okay. And then this is the essays for the approval paper. Okay. For this particular issue, 1962, the paper used is chalky surface paper. Okay. So of course, over the years, different type of papers have been used. Okay. So these are the trials that for the approval of the chalky paper. And there are several of that. And then this one is for the approving of the layout of the Chinese characters. So apparently they just blow up the image in black and white and with gray shading to show that the characters are put at the correct positions. So this is you get a small size here is already the original size of the stamps. And then this one is the trial prints. This is the $20. Okay, and the $20 you can see that they are getting several background shade color. Okay. So all of these were not approved, except this the lower center one. Okay, so this lower center one was approved, which has a deep blue color here. Okay, and eventually was used to print the stamps. And then this one is the dollar through proof. Okay, I found this in the booklet of the Hong Kong Stamps and Centenary exhibitions in 1962. Okay. So I don't know where it's about now, but it was just print in that particular booklet. Okay. So this is just a short description from the very early preparations for the stamps, trial prints, and then eventually get the proof. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Professor, may I ask you a question? Why do they need to approve the paper? Is it one of those cards? Some of the cards says approved for paper. Why do you need to approve a paper? I thought they were just color, like color trials or something.
I don't know. Probably there are different type of papers. I don't have the information for that, but I guess probably there would be different thickness of paper, or even different chalky surface, or different type of surface.
That's the first time I've ever seen is that the paper needs to be approved.
Yeah, but that was written down on that on those sheets.
Presumably, the paper is associated with the gum as well.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So that can be what those are from the Postal Museum, right?
It's from the British Library.
From the British Library. Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's very difficult to find those products on the market. So I don't know whether the other members here have found something new. If you found something new, please let me know.
Not really. I think what I actually showed at the promo, are they the same as yours?
Yes, I think so.
Huh?
I think so. Yes.
Are they? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So they just basically from the record, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Actually, I don't know, because I also actually saw something on Facebook this morning that a chappie from Australia actually showed some from Bangladesh,
Oh,
some real items. So I mean, he had them obviously. I hope he's not showing pictures.
I see. It's also an Antigone issue.
Yeah, it's a queen.
Bangladesh?
I don't know whether it's an Antigone or not, but it's the queen with the queen in. So from Harris, exactly the same as with the Harrison, head,
Yeah.
the cards, etc. Now he showed them on Facebook. I just wonder whether he has them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, yeah.
or those are actually just like those scans being
Yeah.
shown on
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
I believe all the Crown Agent's records have been deposited at the British Library,
Yes.
sort of lock, stock and barrel.
Yeah.
And they were usually fairly careful about not letting any of that sort of the sort of proofs and essays that they owned out of their control.
Yeah.
They were fairly concerned not to let them leak out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Angel has shown the another issues that was in auction.
Yes, that's right. The matron. Yeah.
Yeah. The
1970
major one. Yeah. So probably
No,
there
but
will be
that-
some.
Yeah, but is that from the British Library or?
No, probably is from the printer.
Huh?
No, I say that the issue you showed
Yeah.
probably was from the printer.
Yeah, could be. Those are printer essays.
Yeah.
Well, they're obviously not unadopted. A lot of them are
Yeah.
unadopted.
Yeah.
So whether the printers allowed to sell the so pre-production material?
Probably not.
Huh?
I
Not
don't
official.
think so, but there's so many on the market just getting out by different means. I don't know.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay. Now, anybody got anything to show and tell and new finds? You don't have to show the QE2 period. So Susan, are you there, Susan?
It's not nothing. It's nothing to do with Elizabeth.
That's all right. I mean, actually, we're
That's all
talking
right.
about the new finds as well.
Okay.
Basically, show anything you like.
Okay. Right. Yeah. From beginning. Oh God, I don't know what it's this. Where are you going? Okay. It's just two items to show. There's the 1 cent card. It's a nice, attractive card with the pictures on the back. But what really caught my attention was the date, the 23rd of March, 1913. I was quite surprised when I looked at Lee Scamp's listing to find that his earliest date for any George V postcard was the 25th of March, 1913.
Okay.
I'm surprised there aren't any earlier dates. Does anybody know any earlier dates? It just seems rather late for an early usage. So
When were they issued, the cards?
1912.
1912. Oh, yeah. That means.
So, you know,
So
presumably
what
there
happened
should
to
be
the
something.
1912? If they issued in 1912, should be lots of 1912.
There shouldn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Or
I
is it
mean,
just
Lee
one
Scamp's.
cent? All of them were issued on 1912. In 1912.
I think so.
Yeah.
But certainly this one was. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Maybe the
whether
4
anybody's
cent.
discovered another one since Lee Scamp did his listing, I don't know.
Maybe 4 cents. Maybe
But,
4 cents is a more, I would say.
more likely because
More
it's
likely.
the overseas rate.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But this is the
But,
local rate for usually for advertising and
That's right.
announcement of meetings, etc.
Yeah.
And obviously this one is very nice. printed advert or
Yes.
back.
I think that the PMG annual reports at that time used to list everything that was available from the post office. So perhaps if you look at the 1912 report and the 1913, you can see whether these cards were actually available in the post office.
Available then, yeah. It used the various catalogues. It says 1912 that they were issued, but oh well. So it is early usage. There's nobody rushing to tell me there's something earlier. All right, the other one. This is a 5-cent Edward VII envelope, the larger sized one, that has been uprated with another 5 cents to make the rate to Germany.
Yeah.
I went to Scamp's listing again, and although he lists this type of envelope, he doesn't give any details at all about it. Has anyone got any earlier, later dates? There must be some, surely, for this envelope. Mine's 16th of August, 1909. Don't know whether it was an omission on Scamp's part. He didn't do anything about it, or he just didn't find any examples. That's my 2 finds.
Hey. By Siberia, why Siberia by French mail? Why is that?
I presume it was a French boat. No,
No, by Siberia. They can't.
By-
Is it they given a
By
choice?
French mail to Shanghai.
Oh, by French mail to Shanghai and then by Siberia. Oh, okay.
It's
I
northbound.
thought I was given a choice. By sending it by French mail, by Suez or by Siberia.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
No, I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, great item. Good. Yeah. Cool. Any question? Right. We move on to. I thought Richard, you had something to show us.
Yeah, sure.
You've been quiet for some time. Couple of months.
Makes a change.
So you're enjoying your very hot summer holiday.
No holidays.
No holiday for you.
Okay. Let me try to sort this out. This is actually, as it's a show and tell, I should say that this follows that that description, that the show part is mainly John Tang and the tell part is myself. So let's just a couple of things about very early Pan American Airways Trans-Pacific flights. The first flights to come from San Francisco to Manila and back was in 1935. The details are here. It was the China Clipper, and it departed Alameda, which is the base in San Francisco, on the 22nd of November, made its way to Manila, where it arrived on the 29th. An interesting sideline of this was that the crew actually spent one day in Guam celebrating Thanksgiving, and when therefore it arrived a day later. Mail was carried on this inward flight, and it was offloaded at Manila and sent onward by sea from there to Hong Kong by the Eastern Australian steamer Nankin, which arrived in Hong Kong on 4th of December, and mail deliveries in Hong Kong were made the following day. There were no mails sent from Hong Kong on the return flight, which left Manila on the 2nd of December and arrived on schedule 4 days later in Alameda. Here are two sort of standard covers carried on the China Clipper, November 22nd, 22nd at 1 o'clock. The one on the left, I think many people will be very familiar with Mr. Quark, who had a very considerable correspondence and was quite a major collector in Hong Kong. You can see the Manila date stamp at the bottom, 5 o'clock on the 29th. The plane actually arrived at about 3:30, so 1.5 hours later they were processing in the Manila post office. However, none of the mail sent to Hong Kong, apart from this one, had any Hong Kong postal markings as arrivals, even though they would have been sent from the Manila post office to Hong Kong in a bag. This one was addressed to Kowloon City. It has a Hong Kong arrival marking on the 5th, 10:30, and then a 1 p.m. Kowloon, and also has a postman beat marking K11 for delivery to Cheung on Street, Kowloon City. So why would this cover have post office markings, whereas the others don't? And the only answer that I can think of is that this is the only one that I've seen that was actually processed rather than delivered from the GPO. And it was sent over to Kowloon and then on to the addressee. So perhaps that's the reason, because I haven't actually seen another one that went from the post office through Kowloon for onward delivery. Although perhaps there are some floating around, but that was the only thing I could think of.
Richard, I've got one that was going to a PO box number in Hong Kong, and
Yeah,
it's had a Hong Kong Silver Jubilees 3 cent attached to the back, and then cancel Victoria, 11 a.m. on the 5th of December.
oh, okay, all right, but perhaps that was because
That's
the
a
stamp
normal
was put there.
collector method of getting an arrival.
Exactly, yeah, of course. Okay, so so if we go back one, you see these are the normal ones. PO Box and then National City Bank, Hong Kong. These were just for delivery on Hong Kong Island or whatever. It didn't have the famous Hong Kong stamp on the back, as Duncan mentions. Interesting. Here's, there were also bags, I think, made up to China that went through Hong Kong. The only thing I can think of is, from what I've read and seen, is that these covers went on the same ship from Manila to Hong Kong, and then onward on the same steamer to Shanghai. And this particular one was addressed to Beijing, and it would have gone onward from Shanghai by train. You can see the dates there, which fit in with that theory. I also have one which perhaps I should have also included, to Canton. That one just has a Canton, Manila and a Canton stamps. date stamp. Sorry. I read that in later times, individual bags were made from Manila for Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Canton, separate bags. So perhaps that's the reason for that. As I said, there were no mails officially carried on from Hong Kong to Manila, but in the South China Morning Post, which is the extract on the left, you can see there that it was tried to arrange, but it administratively didn't happen, and therefore no mail went. But mail was sent by steamer from Shanghai to Manila to connect, and that steamer would have been the Jibadak, which was a Japan, China, Java line steamer, which arrived Manila on the 28th, and it would have gone on the flight if that was correctly reported. But I've never seen one of these covers from China going on that, but I'm sure someone has one somewhere. That was the first flight to Manila. First flight to Hong Kong was rather a publicity flight. It was called a final inspection trip, carried out by the Philippine Clipper with invited guests. At that time, it was a toss-up, political toss-up between Macau and or Hong Kong as the Asiatic base. Hong Kong was obviously the better option, but there was constant discussions, shall we say, whether Imperial Airways could wangle reciprocal rights, particularly in China. And anyway, in the end, it all worked out. But this was a part of, I think, the pressurization from Pan American to sort it out. Anyway, the Philippine Clipper was left Alameda on 14th of October 36, arrived in Manila on the 20th, and it left Manila on the 21st, arriving at Kai Tak on that day, Kai Tak Bay. And mail was officially carried from San Francisco to all the ports of call except one, Hong Kong. There was no official mail accepted through to Hong Kong. And on the return flight, no mail was sent from Hong Kong, although mail was carried from all the other ports of call. So I think 2 or 3 journals back, Peter Hilling, sorry, excuse me, did a couple of very interesting articles about very early flights. And Philippe did a follow-up regarding one of the guests, Mr. Eamon Carter, Senior. And I found that very interesting, so I investigated a little bit further. Eamon Carter owed his place on this flight to his close friend, Will Rogers. He was the famous cowboy on the white horse in many movies, but he was closely associated with one of the senior Pan Am executives. And Will Rogers reserved 2 places on this first through flight to Hong Kong 2 years previously. Unfortunately, he passed away in the interim, and just Eamon Carter went on the plane. And during this trip, Eamon Carter carried and sent many covers to himself, his son, Eamon Jr., and his daughter, Olive. So here are two covers, one to his son and one to his daughter, and one to Manila, and one to Guam. He also, in San Francisco, had stamped rather a lot, I think, of covers addressed to himself, his son, his daughter, at the Hong Kong Hotel in Hong Kong. But these were all carried privately to Hong Kong, presumably by him, and taken back to the United States, so on. When Eamon Carter arrived in Hong Kong on the 21st on the plane, Philippine, there were no mails to be returned on the plane, so he arranged for covers to be sent in the next mail from Hong Kong to connect with the service to the USA. He left on Saturday, the 24th, on the Clipper, and the covers were posted at the Kowloon Post Office on the Monday afternoon by someone he had met or associate or whatever, not known, and stamps covering the $4.20 half-ounce rate by sea to Manila and onward to the USA by Pan Am were attached. There's one cover here to his son and one cover here to his daughter. They both have the same stuff on the reverse, signed off by Eamon Carter, Hong Kong. And these covers were dispatched on the steamer Jibbadak, and that departed Hong Kong on the 27th of October and arrived Manila on the 29th. Went onward by the Hawaii Clipper, which left Manila on the 31st and arrived Alameda, San Francisco on the 4th of November. He also sent letters from Manila on the return. The plane landed in Manila on the 24th from Hong Kong, and he arranged for covers like this one to be sent back to the United States through the Manila Post Office. The inward, I forgot to mention, the inward and the outward final inspection trip had hand stamps as shown. As I mentioned before, there was no mail from Hong Kong carried on the plane. That's it. Thanks, John Tang.
Thank you, Richard. And thank you, John. Is John here? No. Right. Anyway, well explained, and your research as usual from Richard. Okay, thank you. Anybody got anything else to show?
Just a comment, Eamon Carter later became a director of Pan American Airways in his own right. He was a Dallas newspaper man originally.
Ah, right, thank you.
Yes. He has his own museum or whatever it is. I think
Yes.
Philippe knows more about that. He was quite an influential man.
He was living in Fort Worth, and he was an air bug. And there is an airport called Emont Carter there. He was extremely famous in Texas, and he was involved in, he was socialized in political, and he was a billionaire. He was millionaire at that time, which would be today billionaire, and he financed a lot of political people. He was a very important person. And if you know the Dallas Metroplex, you got Dallas and you got Fort Worth, which are sister cities in the Metroplex. And when he was going to Dallas, he would take his own sandwich because he didn't want to spend 1 penny in Dallas, being from Fort Worth. He was quite a character person. Anyway, that's...
Yeah, thank you. Good. Anybody got anything to say? Right. In that case, we have had a good hour and a half of interesting items and about Hong Kong and of course the Commonwealth. Yes. Right. I've just noticed that we have a very important guest. We are actually privileged to have Dr. Prakop, who's the newly elected FIP president, sitting in our meeting. I mean, we have never felt so important before to have a big boss, coming to our meeting, listening to our interesting talks. And yeah, Dr. Prakop, would you like to say a few words? And we all congratulate your new job as president. And Dr. Prakop.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Andrew. Good evening and good morning, everyone. Sorry I joined in late. And it was, as usual, very interesting meeting and sharing of the items and the knowledge. May I ask Ingo a question? Because when Dr. Andrew asked the floor if any questions, I was still tied up in another meeting, so I cannot talk at the time. The Queen's stamp, the one that you mentioned with special different pictures of her Majesty.
Yep.
Yes, that one. Not the children one. The next one. In Canada, when you issue stamps like this, do you have to get Her Majesty approval first?
Yes. That earlier one from her wedding was not approved, but once she became queen, all the images of her needed to be approved before issuing of stamps in Canada. And there was actually some controversy because the very first definitive issue, which I didn't show, in 1953 was based on a portrait by our famous photographer named Joseph Karsh. She didn't like her image on it. And it actually wasn't a very nice image of her. And she apparently took a fit, and we had to, in 1954, change the definitives to the Wilding image, and we did, and those lasted a long time. So yes, she once she became sovereign, she personally approved every stamp design, approved or disproved every stamp design.
Okay, thank you, Ingo, because like you mentioned, that was the one image that we don't see anywhere else. So that's why I asked you this. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and
it's a good question.
Sharing knowledge. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good question. She was very particular about her image.
Yes, like all the royals around the world. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
When you get to that level, you have a lot of control.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Prakop. Right. Aside from very sad mourning for our Queen's lost, there is also a very important person to Hong Kong Philately has passed away recently. That's Mr. Patrick Pearson, who actually was a very important member of the Hong Kong Study Circle. And I'm sure that many of you would have known Mr. Pearson throughout the years. He's been an honorary member of the Royal Philatelic Society and RDP, the Royal Distinguished Philatelist, as well as he's written a lot of works on Hong Kong. If you go through the early study circle journals in the 70s, you probably have seen some of his articles. And also an expert in Hong Kong philately, and the number of certificates of Hong Kong material that he has signed, whether the blessing or just saying that they are no good, are phenomenal. And he's usually, because of his knowledge, he's usually the sole signatory of the certificate. And it's a real loss to our hobby as well as our Hong Kong philately. So I wish everybody to really just observe minutes of silence to Mr. Pearson's passing. Yes, he'll be missed by all. I actually, he's a very, very knowledgeable guy, not only in Hong Kong but also in Ceylon as well. And I last time I met him was in I think many of us actually met him in the Royal display in 2015. I think several members like Charles Chan were there, and there was a display of Chinese and Hong Kong material, and he was there actually looking at interesting covers and treasures that in people's collection. So very humorous guy, very humble, knowledgeable certainly, and I think you know, if you had met him before, you know, you would certainly agree with me. That is a really sad, big loss for Hong Kong. Thank you. So anyway, next month, I have a volunteer, Ingo. Ingo will talk about mail from dead country. Am I right?
Well, mail from Hong Kong to dead countries.
Dead countries, okay. Fair enough. To make it more difficult.
Yeah,
right,
excerpts.
Okay, so, yes.
Excerpts from my destination collection.
Yes. Okay, well, we certainly look forward to that. Is it going to be a solo presentation? Yeah, probably. You probably need over 2 hours to talk about that.
No, I'm going to make it brief. I find when I watch presentations or listen to presentations, if it goes too long, I tune out. Yes. So I'm not going to bore people. I'm going to have good material, but I'm going to go fast, and I'll try to make it maybe 30 minutes maximum, 20, 30 minutes.
Great. So if anybody got any mail from Hong Kong to dead countries, you are most willing to share after Ingo's presentation then. Okay, until then, it's a good evening. It's almost good night for me, and well, good morning, good afternoon, all. Oh, okay. So see you next time. It'll be in October. Yes. So stay tuned and watch out for the date and the link. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you all. Bye bye.